This episode is about minutes 121 through 125 of Solo, a Star Wars story, in which Qi'ra ditches Han, we leave Savareen, and reunite with Lando. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today is all about minutes 121 through 125 of Solo, a Star Wars story. This is really, we're entering the tail end of the film. This is the second to last set of minutes that has actual parts of the film, not the credits in it. And I'm so excited to have Kris, aka Star Wars Lawyer, back to the show. Kris, thank you for doing this.
Hello, what have we here? Thank you for having me. It's great to be back on Star Wars Music Minute.
So I'm going to put up a little bit of an image here. Because I went to Star Wars Celebration, as did Kris, and here we are. Look how cute we are on screen if you're watching on YouTube. And so on the first day, my friends James and Justin, aka the Band Batch, who were on last week, we got to watch the Kenobi premiere, and it was sort of like a lottery system. And when we were sitting at the Kenobi premiere, like in the nosebleed seats, like at the very, very back top, my friend was like, "Oh my gosh, look at the front. There's like, I think that's Lando, like dancing in the aisles." And I looked down, I was like, "Where?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I think I know him. I think that's Star Wars Lawyer. I bet that's Star Wars Lawyer." And sure enough,
right.
after the premiere, I spotted this one and was like, "See, look, it's Lando."
I did get one picture from that because I did have other friends that were there, and they were like one of them, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know if you follow them on any social media. He does Obi-Wan. He sent me a picture on Instagram. He's like, "Was this you?" And I was like, "Yeah."
So naturally, I had to get you in on some Lando minutes from this film, especially since this is a Lando that is, relatively new to Star Wars. And yeah, I just wanted to talk to a true Lando aficionado about what we have here. So before we get into listening to the minutes, do you have any overall thoughts either about Solo, the music, or this set of minutes, sort of like anything that stands out to you as maybe a favorite moment or something that is curious to you?
So I haven't been shy in my criticisms of this movie on my social media. I thought like I wasn't excited like going in to see the film. Like I grew up as a fan of Childish Gambino's music, and then his acting on Community. So once they cast him as Lando, I was like, all right, I'm going to go see this thing. So he was really my driving force for it.
Donald Glover.
Yes, I do think that this should have been a Lando movie. Because I feel like as far as the main characters that were legacy characters in this movie, that we needed more of Lando's backstory than Han, because he's the oldest one of the OG crew, and he's like 3 years younger than Padme, so he's been around the block for a long time. And
I never put that together. His age versus Padme.
Yeah, he's a year older than Anakin, which is wild to think. It's like, yeah, this man was kicking it around in the Clone Wars. What was he doing?
Yeah, that just put things in a different perspective, because he really is like a slightly older generation than Han.
Mm-hmm.
And then older than Leia. I mean, I guess that's interesting. He's basically more like Leia's uncle in terms of age.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I do feel like this film does do a better job of showcasing that age difference between Lando and Han. Because I guess that might not matter as much in your 30s and 40s, but in, like the early 20s to, like mid 30s, like that is going to be a difference in life experience. And I think you also do see that in their final interaction here.
Yeah, yeah. Um, like visually, I feel like it is hard to see that there's an age gap between Han and Lando.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I agree with you in terms of the way that Lando talks down to Han like he's a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. And with regard to the Lando, whether we needed more Lando backstory or whom this film should have been about, I actually agree with you. Like I would have wanted to know more about Lando, and I think Lando is like when I think this movie shines, and I think this movie feels like has come into its own most when when it revolves around Lando and it has that lighthearted feel. Because I feel like for me, this film kind of falls off of its pedestal sometimes when it tries to be too epic.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's why Lando is refreshing as a character. Lando or Donald Glover's performance as Lando is refreshing to me because it feels like it just is what it is and isn't trying too hard to, I don't know, be something super, super deep. That said, it would be cool if they had actually written some character development into him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things, I also enjoy Qi'ra in this film. I enjoy her a lot, and I've liked what they've done with her character in the comics. And I'm just like, bring her back to live action. Just bring her back, because I think she's a very compelling character on her own, where she is not necessarily tied to a man or a man's development. She is her own character. She has her own motivations, and she's Lando says she's one of the most dangerous women he's ever known in the comics, or one of the most dangerous people he's ever known. And yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because how do you feel about their romance? Do you feel like Qi'ra stands out more when she's on her own, or do you buy the romance between she and Han?
I feel like if we got more of their romance in the beginning of the film, it may have played out differently, but we didn't get really a lot because there's 3 years is a long time to go without seeing someone at all, have like zero communication, and you see Han still feels the same way, and Kira kind of does, but Kira's motivations are, she's been fighting to survive.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think the music actually tells a little bit of a romantic story between them that is, I don't want to say like not earned in the film, but the music for them, because I feel like the music for Han and Qi'ra is so beautiful and so earnestly old school romantic. That action, and I think it's a beautiful piece of music, and listening to it outside of the movie, I think it's really beautiful. And then I think listening to their music in the context of the movie is sometimes a little bit jarring because I don't feel like it matches what I'm getting from the movie in terms of their romance. So I guess that this is a good, here, I'll throw up an image on YouTube showing the progression of these minutes, or at least, of the goodbye of Qi'ra leaving Han, sort of looking through the windows of the yacht, and Han just seeing the yacht flying away, and then Chewie consoling, putting an arm on Han's shoulder as they watch this very interestingly designed yacht fly away. Yeah. Want to get into listening to the minutes so we can hear some of that Han and Qi'ra action as we transition along? Let's do it.
I would have killed you.
Right. So, of course, the minutes begin with the tail end of Beckett dying.
Play that valid chord.
I know.
Going into the secrets theme. This is Han looking up to see Qi'ra's yacht. Before I continue, do you have any feelings about the music during Beckett's death?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We don't in Star Wars we don't really get a lot of those sort of personal or personalized send-offs. The ones that I can really think of are Qui-Gon, Vader, and Jedi, uh, and I think maybe you count Padme because there's a lot going on in that scene. Like, yes,
Yeah.
her send off is happening, but you also have the birth of the twins and everything like that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot there. But it's a very solemn moment for Han, someone he killed, as opposed to someone else, and he's coming to he's like appreciating the lesson that Beckett taught him. And sort of this is like the beginning of the hardening of his heart for where he gets to when we meet him in A New Hope. Like, the Beckett is part 1, Qi'ra is part 2.
That's a good point. And I never really thought about it that way in terms of like not getting these personal moments of reckoning with death in Star Wars. And I feel like actually I think something that I would really like in Star Wars one day, if an author perhaps is really motivated, or I think this would make for a really good Star Wars vision, and I would be willing to write that if anyone's listening, is like I would really like a story that goes really deeply into grief. Just because in Star Wars we have so much death and we have so much war and a lot of people being strong in the face of adversity and being really strong in the face of all their loved ones dying and just like all these things happening. Like, it would be, I think, just as a fan, I think it would be kind of cathartic and healing to see a character actually deal with grief and have it not be like a brave, like, I'm over it thing. Like, and so having these moments of actually being like, wow, someone did die and I'm going to sit with that for a little bit are kind of rare. And here, the way that it kind of just goes from Beckett's death to Qi'ra leaving, it's like all these ripples of kind of loss. It does kind of remind me also of the Padme context, where it is a lot of things being lost at the same time, which, I guess movies tend to stack that kind of stuff up. So it makes sense. But yeah, good point there. What we're hearing there is the violins are playing what's called artificial harmonics. That's why it sounds so glassy. And so an artificial harmonic is played by pressing down. Oh, I'll play what that was so you can hear what it sounds like. So if you're watching on YouTube, you might be able to see that my finger on the string, my top finger, is not actually pressed all the way down. It's just lightly touching the top of the string. So that's why it's not like such a strong fundamental note. Like you could think of it as instead of that, it's you hear it's like, obviously it's a very different timbre, and it is often used in a more eerie context.
Yeah, and I think that fits better for like a non-force sensitive sort of like send off, because when we think of like the Force and the music that accompanies that, it is more spiritual, but it's more regal and sort of soul moving, as opposed to like, I feel uncomfortable here.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting because in my mind, I'm like, yeah, the harmonics kind of sound like ghostly, like forced ghosts. But then also, the artificial harmonics sound more perhaps non-committal. They perhaps sound more like less assertively emotional. That I think it also fits in this context, just because Han probably has such mixed feelings at this moment, and is probably feeling hesitant to feel too much in terms of what he just did. And like this is really a big transition point for Han, actually, in the character he grows into, like the person he grows into. Like this is his, I don't know, probably the first time he's killed a friend, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably. And and he had to do it,
Yeah.
and so he has to come to grips with this. And it was more like a split-second decision, not, one of those things where it's like, all right, I have to go on a hunt to get this person. So you have that journey of like coming to grips with that situation. It was more like, nope, it's either you or me, kid. And
Yep.
it's going to be you.
Yep. I just watched the movie The Quick and the Dead last night, and it reminds me a little bit of that movie. I mean, I guess Westerns in general, but I'm not the most familiar with the genre of Westerns. So, but I'm the concept of like a sort of a shootout where you don't necessarily like want to kill someone, but it's you or them.
Right.
Oh gosh, it just gives me so much anxiety to think about. Yeah. So anyway, it overlaps into the secrets theme, of course, when Beckett is looking up at Qi'ra's yacht, which is leaving without him. And Qi'ra does look sad to be leaving. She looks, it's bittersweet. Like, I think she knows where her priorities lie, but she also wishes that she didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm. And there's also this, Han is free to do what he wants. Qi'ra doesn't really have that freedom. She has to go see Maul, which I don't think anybody really wants to go see Maul. But, she can't be with him in either way, or even choose to be with him. Like, the choice is made for her right now. And so for like both of them, it's the death of that dream that they had of being together.
Yeah, death of a dream for sure. Yeah, I guess no one really wants to ever see Darth Maul. Yeah,
well,
that would.
There are some people in the fandom that do, as Ewan and Hayden just recently learned.
That's funny. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about Maul in this movie, but I think Maul is just a character that is funny. I find him funny. I find him funny because of the animated shows. Like, I think of Maul as a cross between Jafar and Scar. So Jafar from Aladdin and Scar from The Lion King. So like, I think he's like and perhaps even Hades from Hercules. Like, I just feel like he's like, I feel like he has so much camp potential. So it is kind of funny to see him in the last set of minutes, just like open his lightsaber and be what he is, be super threatening.
I want Sam Witwer to sing the Prince Ali reprise. Someone pay him on Cameo to do it.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I mean, yeah, I think Maul would be perfect in a musical for sure.
There are a lot of genres that people are like, we need to get in Star Wars. Like, we need to get more horror Star Wars. We need to get like, political dramas and everything. I was like, where's the Star Wars musical?
I think that's a very logical progression, especially considering that Star Wars is like at its heart, like at least in its conception, it's an opera. Like, it's a space opera, and listening to it without looking at visuals, you often get this sense of what is happening, and it sounds very, I don't know, operatic to a lot of people, myself included. I think a musical would be a natural extension, at least for a fan project. It's been kind of a theme on this show where like every now and then we'll be talking, I'll be talking with a guest and we'll be like, this should be a musical. This would work really well as a musical, especially at the beginning of the film, I feel, where Han is like looking around and just like escaping in the air, like at the airport. I don't know, it just feels very Newsies to me.
I can imagine that now.
Yeah, it's also like Oliver Twist. I'll take this moment to shout out. There is someone, is it on Steve Danielson's YouTube channel? There is someone a composer who has turned parts of Solo into musical numbers. And they're on YouTube somewhere. So if anyone's interested in checking out, like the Lady Proximo one is really funny. And she definitely, you just plop her straight to a musical. She would work. She works. Yeah. Anyway.
I do want to say about the ship, I do think it has one of the more interesting sound designs, because we don't really get a lot of more varied sound designs when it comes to ships. And we also often don't get a lot of sound design for them taking off. And so it definitely like draws your ear away from this solemn moment. And it's just like, boom, something's happening.
You know what? It sounds like a thunderstorm to me. This ship.
Yeah.
I don't know. It has like, how would you describe the sound of the ship?
Oh, it's definitely a rumble.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like it's almost a dirty sound, but like dirty's like not even the right word. It's like, well, let's listen. Let's listen to it. I guess it's already taken off by then.
Yeah.
It's like it's like not a very cutting sound. It's more of a, there it is. It has a lot of bass in it.
It also sounds kind of alien to me, like in those like early like 90s alien movies, whenever like the alien just like sort of comes around, there's sort of like that eerie sort of like synth to it.
Oh, okay. I think now I'll have to revisit some of those movies. I don't really remember.
The one I can think of is Independence Day, when like the alien actually is revealed like outside of its exoskeleton.
Oh, that sounds graphic.
I mean, it like as a kid, yes, but when like I look at it now, I think it's kind of funny. Like when you have like these sort of smaller aliens inside this big thing, and you're just kind of like, you're just a little guy.
It does sound wet to me. It sounds like submerged in a way. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it, it's almost underwater, like a cannon firing underwater.
Maybe it's because it's a yacht, but it's a space yacht
maybe.
I think that's the only space yacht we've gotten on screen, because the other one, I don't think the Halcyon counts. I mean, granted, we haven't gotten that on screen yet, but I don't think the Halcyon counts as a yacht. But Lando's ship, the Lady Luck that he has post the original trilogy, is a space yacht. Oh. But we haven't seen that on scene yet.
Okay. I guess now my ears are going to be perked for the next time we hear a yacht. the takeoff sound really is quite distinct. You are right. So as we continue along these minutes, we now have kind of Han and Chewie, or Chewie's kind of consoling Han. Now we have some sad cello. This is the Han and Chewie motif. And now it's dusk. We can hear that there's a scene change or a time change because we hear the rustling change. So Han and Chewie are walking to meet Enfys Nest. This is the gang motif. It's really a long time to go without dialogue. It's the music is really telling the story here. I think it's for the better.
Yeah. I do think though, like all of the music that's in this the last 5 minutes or in this 5 minutes, you can even go a couple minutes before, should be used in the audiobooks, because the audiobooks rely heavily really on the original trilogy, but and a little bit of the prequels for the one that are in the prequels. But they really should diversify the music that they have, because you can use this for a whole wide variety of scenes that are in there. But instead you just rely on the classics, which is fine. But it's weird when I'm listening to the Thrawn audiobook and like they're like winning, and then you play the Force theme for the Empire. Like, no, thank you.
That's such a good point. Oh my gosh, the audiobook soundtracks are like a whole topic to get into. It's a whole thing. I keep telling myself that I'm going to start taking better notes on like the musical choices that happen in them. But yeah, it is interesting that they really use the same set of like 6 pieces for all of the audiobooks.
Yeah, because I talked with other people, and we've mostly talked about the that we need like the Rebels soundtracks when they release seasons 3 and 4 too, because those have Kevin Kiner and his brother have done a fantastic job with Clone Wars and Rebels and even Bad Batch, so they need to draw on those, because those also convey a wider range of emotions than just the original trilogy soundtracks that they draw from. Just because when you hear the Imperial March, you're automatically thinking Vader or the Empire, but that doesn't really work in the High Republic.
Right. My kind of unpopular opinion is that like I would be okay if the audiobooks were a little bit less produced, which I know is like the major draw with. This is a little bit of a tangent, but if any listeners here haven't listened to Star Wars audiobooks, they are quite a production, and they're really well produced. I think, and that is a major draw for people listening to the audiobooks. Like the voice acting is spectacular. Sometimes I feel like there could be less music and sound effects, but that I say that as someone who I get distracted, and sometimes the sound effects are so much that I can't pay attention to the words at the same time, or that like it will be hard for me to hear, especially on the more grating parts. Where sometimes they'll do grating noises too, when appropriate. But yeah, they do use the same like 6 pieces all the time. So there's a thing. So getting back to these minutes. We're about to get to this part where Enfys Nest sort of tries to get Han to perhaps join the rebellion. It is a very interesting conversation, because it's like she doesn't seem mad that he's saying no. She's just sort of like, okay. And she's like, do you know what this is? And Han's like, yeah, about 60 million credits worth of refined coaxium. And then she's like, No, it's the blood that brings life to something new. Yeah, what? A rebellion. You could come with us, we need warriors and leaders like you. Which I think is an interesting thing for her to say to Han. Like, I accept it as a just because when I'm in the Star Wars vibe, I guess it makes sense. But if I really think about it a little bit too hard, I kind of wonder, like, why does she think he's a warrior and leader? Unless the rebellion is just really desperate at this point, which they probably are. What do you think?
I don't know if leader would be the right word, because he wasn't even the leader in what happened there. So if she could have been like somewhat like courageous, or something, because like, yeah, he did make a couple personal sacrifices to help them, and so someone of that is courageous or that has that upstanding character, the rebellion needs people like you, and that would make sense. Because even when we get to the original trilogy, which is 10 plus years later, when he's actually a part of the rebellion, he's so reluctant to be called general. And, so it's just like, he's like, he's not a leader yet.
Yeah. Although now, as someone who I don't consider myself a leader at all. Like, I'm very resistant to being called a leader in any way. Now I kind of get where Han is coming from. This always happens. This happens to me every now and then with Han, where I'm like, I don't relate to Han at all. And then I realize that maybe there's a tiny bit that I do relate to. And that is, Han perhaps he's a doer. He doesn't want to take the responsibility of being a leader, but without trying to be, he kind of is sometimes.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of get that. But so she's maybe saying the rebellion could use someone like you, whether it's like someone with the title of general or leader, maybe not. But either way, like, yeah, he did do good for the rebellion eventually.
And this music is very hopeful.
Yeah, it is very hopeful.
So that's also, I feel like, something she's conveying to him.
Her hopes?
She has to have hope. Yeah, she has to have hope to be in the rebellion. Like,
yeah, and she does. And I think, like, well, let's listen.
Yeah, about 60 million credits worth of refined coaxium.
No, it's the blood that brings life to something new.
Like, the way she's speaking.
A rebellion.
Like, she believes in her cause.
You need warriors and leaders like you.
And so that's a little bit of the young Han heroic theme.
Don't hold your breath, kid.
So it's just some simple strings. We have this little burst of Han's theme, but not a big brassy, like, bold version of it. It's just like, it's kind of in the back of his mind, or just, it's like subtext, really.
yeah.
Very few people.
Oh, and then, okay, I love that transition. So that's the end of the interaction with Enfys Nest, with a little bit of young Han's heroic theme peeking through, showing us what's to come, perhaps.
Yes.
She knows. She knows more than him, or like, I guess in Star Wars, the people with hope kind of always eventually win in the end, right? And so even if she doesn't know he will come back, it's like she has that naive sense that the belief that he will. I don't know. Yeah.
I do hope that one day we do get like an interaction of them in the future. Like, whether it's, she's at another rebellion base and sees like General Solo helped, the rebels escape on Hoth, and she's just like, I knew it.
Yeah, I'm curious, do we know how long she lived?
I don't know. I don't think we've gotten a lot more than this, and then she's at the end of I think Rebel Rising, which takes place with a young Jyn Erso. But I think that no, that's at the end of that's at the end of the solo novelization.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I
Interesting.
don't think we get much more than that. So she meets with Saw Gerrera and a young Jin. They have a brief conversation,
Hmm.
and that's who she's delivering the coaxium to.
Yeah. I wonder if she'll be in Andor.
Yeah, she'd be a great character for Andor, and I don't think
Yeah.
the actress is too busy.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't
Oh
know how
wait,
that. She's
she's
in the
in
Willow thing.
yeah. Huh.
Who
Well, maybe
knows?
they had it on sets nearby, and she was able to go from one to
Yeah.
the other. I don't know.
Yeah. Who
Stay
knows?
booked and busy.
We don't really know how this stuff works, especially when it's all under Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So okay, so here is now we get to we're this is the fun part. We have another piece of source music. We have some diegetic music that we're about to get into, but we hear Lando's jungle outpost before we see it because the music and his voiceover serves as a transition. Like the camera travels through the jungle foliage basically and finds Lando, and that's our POV that through this. So it is quite an interesting jump, I guess. Let's hear that transition. Oops,
Your breath.
there we go. So this is Enfys Nest handing Han the single vial of coaxium.
Don't lose that.
So listen for the transition.
Very few people have actually seen the Stargate
Here we go.
Nebula. It's breathtaking. Not unlike your eyes. How much do you know about intertwined celestial bodies? Because I happen to be something of an
Now we hear the
authority.
source music piping
way.
in. And now
You're alive!
now we're
No thank
yeah, so that's the point where the camera and characters kind of meet the destination of where we are going. So what do you think of this what do you think of all this?
It's a lot of fun because so they've named the outfit Lando is wearing in this is called the Raconteur, and that just means someone that's like really good at telling stories, which fits because that's what he's doing here is he's telling this story to hit on this person because Lando's always gonna be smooth, the old smoothie. So it's getting Lando's like back to where he was before, like nothing happened. Um,
Did they name this in the visual guide? Is that where?
I don't know if they named it in the visual guide. They named it in the Battlefront 2 video game because they name all the
That's so
outfits that you
funny.
can play in the game. Because there's not a lot about this outfit out there. I think I only know of like one. I'm in a Lando Calrissian community cosplay group, and I know there's
That's
one
amazing.
person that made it. Like that made the outfit. So it's a very popular outfit, but very uh, underplayed outfit.
Are you going to do this outfit at some point?
Maybe we'll see. I got a couple ones in the pipeline right now that are taking a lot of resources. So
Nice. Um, I love that. Okay. So yeah, he is telling a stories. He is telling a set of who knows what these are. Like he's sort of they're pickup lines, but they're stories, but they're it's clearly not meant to be like a linear thing. It sounds like we're hearing kind of bits of a couple different things, but I like I was saying toward the beginning of this episode, I enjoy that because I like I like Donald Glover's pushing of Lando into more camp or like into more extra, like into, I don't know if camp, it may not even be the right word, just like flair. Like I like pushing Lando into this really fun character.
Yeah.
So, this piece of source music is called Lando's Jungle Room, 7M46S, and it's only a minute long on the soundtrack because, I mean, really, it's just meant to be this transitional music, and you can only find it on the deluxe version of the solo soundtrack. But it is the first time that we are hearing source music since, I believe, we were on Dryden's Yacht, hearing Stormtrooper Karaoke and Chicken in the Pot. So, so it's always fun to note when there is the diegetic music happening in Star Wars. And I guess it's sort of like a groovy beat, mainly percussive, percussion driven track. And like I said, it doesn't last long, and then it transitions into a different track that we'll hear in a second. So Han obviously sits down at the table, and we see their reunion. They had a pretty bad goodbye. Like they left on pretty bad terms.
I hate you. I know.
Yeah. Right. Never want to speak to you again. And so here's how they reunite.
I should have Chewie rip your arms off. In fact, Chewie... Hey, we are friends. You know that. We're friends, all right? We're not going to... Oh, look at you. Thought he was going to rip your arms off.
I knew you were kidding.
No, you didn't.
So where's my cut?
Your cut? No, I don't think so. We barely made it out alive.
So
All we
Han
ended
is
up
like...
with was that.
Han is pretty forgiving.
Yeah, I think he knows. I think there's their understanding. Like Han knows what Lando lost in this with L3, and I think the also great thing about like that interaction is it's the reverse of what happens in Empire. So Han is coming to Lando for help instead of to get something from him, and Lando's the one to be like, "Why you?" and then just goes into the hug, and it's like that same sort of like grabbing of the arm and pulling in for the hug, except this time Han was taking the hidden Sabacc card up Lando's sleeve, and I think that's a really fun thing, and Chewie going along with it.
Yeah, and they also do that in Last Shot. When they first meet up.
Mm-hmm. Him and Chewie were practicing that on the way there. Like I'm gonna do this, and you back me up. All right, you'll know when.
Han is very about. He cares about people. Like he cares about having friends. Like he cares about being part of something.
Yeah.
And that is something that sets him apart from Qi'ra for sure, and is a through line in his character that that he downplays, but his actions really, even in A New Hope when he doesn't want to help, but he will come back. He will come back, and he does, and he always does come through, even if he doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. Be seen as someone who comes through. So here, Lando is like, "You want a rematch?" And Han's like, "Why not?" And then we get the beginning of this other track called, on the regular version of the soundtrack, Dice and Roll. And on the deluxe version of the soundtrack, it's called Sabacc Rematch / To Tatooine 7M47-48. Mm-hmm. And you hear it?
I figure it's worth about 10,000, maybe enough for a decent buy-in.
You want a rematch?
So no, we still have the source music in the background.
Why not?
And here's where this
You fold now.
non-diegetic music kicks
Walk
back
away with
in.
enough to get yourself your own little ship. You call
I'm gonna clean you out again.
And this whole track is pretty reminiscent of the first time they have a Sabacc match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm feeling lucky.
And the whole soundscape, I'd say, in general, too, with the crowd kind of in the background with their ooh and ah and clapping and everything. It's sort of like the same setup as we had before.
Yep. And
what do you think? What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's also something we don't get because, Star Wars is mostly battles and conversations and, to get this sort of slowed down moment where you're getting into the universe. So, like you said, you have the diegetic music and then you have the catching of the chips, you have the crowd's interaction. It's not something you get a lot of in Star Wars. So it's definitely a different moment and makes you feel more in the world.
Well, that's interesting because actually, like, leading into the match is when we had the diegetic music, aka source music, meaning it was coming from the location. But then when they start the match, even though it is in a style that is reminiscent of source music, with the Southwest kind of beats and whatever, that actually is non-diegetic music. Like, that is underscore. But you're not the first. But you're not the first. Like, when we were in the original minutes with the first Sabacc thing, like, we were talking about that in that episode too. How we were like, is that diegetic or is it not? And it's not diegetic, but it is written in a way that feels like it belongs in that world. Like, it's very specific. Like, you don't hear that kind of score in most of in the rest of a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
So it toes this interesting line that, to me, like, I think it sounds like Weeds or Orange is the New Black. Or like a crime comedy, drug comedy or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is interesting, and it is certainly like a unique thing that John Powell brings that John Williams, to my knowledge, has not done in Star Wars. So it provides sort of an out of the way piece of music that one does not have to pay attention to, that it's not so overtaking that you can't pay attention to their dialogue, because really the dialogue and the action on the table is what's most important.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't get to the end of the match in this set of minutes, but we just have a few little jabs.
You really have it bad for the Falcon, don't you?
It's mutual, trust me. She belongs with me.
The way that people talk about ships is so, like, annoying to me.
It adds the other layer with L3 being a part of the ship now.
Oh, totally.
And now I'm just like, I feel like Lando, as much as he cared about and loved L3, would never bet the Falcon, even if he knew 100% the game was rigged in his favor, because he would know there is no 100% chance that the game is rigged in his favor. So I don't think he would ever. And, like, what, that 10,000 credits isn't even enough to, try and not something he cared about. Like, if L3, if it was just the ship, then yeah, sure. But now that his co-captain, or not co-captain, but his best friend, love, many other adjectives, is a part of that ship permanently, I feel like it wouldn't be in his character to actually give her up.
I agree. And I that's like a part where I have to suspend disbelief a little bit, because I also feel like it's something I don't quite buy, but, like, obviously we know that
it has to happen.
Yeah, it has to happen some way. I think maybe it happens so at least Han didn't win the Falcon the first time they played, but still, like, it's almost a little too casual. And Han's like, a little too, I don't know. I think I would have felt a lot more guilty. I'm not sure though, but I mean, I'm also not a card player, and I get it. Like you come to, I guess, betting hopefully with an understanding of what you might lose. And so hopefully it's all in good, I don't know, just, there's also the fact that Lando cheats. So maybe Han doesn't feel that bad about it, knowing that Lando cheats. But yeah.
But also you met L3, and L3 risked her life on your mission.
Exactly. I think just like the possessiveness, or like, I don't know. That line, like, I don't like it. I think it works. I think it fits Han's character, but it makes me go like, ugh, Han.
Yeah.
It's mutual, trust me. She belongs with me. Like, it's so possessive, and it's so like, also just the naming of ships as like she always just kind of makes me roll my eyes.
Also, it's like you flew the ship once. You know, like you flew the ship once, and only because Lando was hurt, not because you could do it better than he could.
Yeah. So, but it is what it is, and and that's where we end these minutes with this Lando feeling for his secret card up his sleeve, and it's not there, and Han going, "You got everything you need there, pal." And in the next set of minutes, we'll find out what happens. But we are very, very close to the end of the movie, so we all know what's going to happen. Yes. Yeah. In these minutes, is there, or in Solo in general, I know we were talking before we started recording, but do you have any thoughts on the soundtrack as a whole? Like, I know that you really listened to a lot of Star Wars soundtracks, but that perhaps you were less familiar with this one.
Yeah, I really was undervaluing this one, and I guess it's maybe because I just attach it to the movie as a whole. Because we did the March Madness music bracket, and it's like, oh, we're doing anthologies one. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty familiar with like the Rogue One soundtrack, because I listened to that a lot when it came out. But so then I had to listen to Solo, and there are a lot of fun. It's different because it's you have John Williams, but you also have John Powell, and I feel like he has a different style, just like Ludwig Göransson has a different style than like John Williams and Michael Giacchino. So I think this definitely fits the film, and I feel like for me the soundtrack is better than the film.
I think so too.
And I think it's interesting, like for me with Lando, you have the sort of the when you have his entrance in Cloud City and the music for Cloud City, it's more regal, it's more elegant, because that's where he is, and that's like that's how he's presenting himself. And here, he's more of like this sort of sportsman, still like a gambler, a smuggler. So you have that sort of like clubby, upbeat sort of tempo for him, as he's, at this early stage of his life. Well, earlier stage of his life, because he's still in like his mid-30s here.
Yeah. I would say that like, is Solo probably your least favorite Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense then why you would be less familiar with the soundtrack, because I find that those things tend to correlate with just how much you know and love the movie. And because Solo, before starting this season, obviously now I know the Solo sound score very well, very, very well. But before this season, I was least familiar with it as well, because it was my least watched Star Wars film, which said nothing to the merit of the score. And it was just because I wasn't very into the movie. That was the only reason. So yeah, that is interesting. With regard to Lando's music, I would actually say that I don't think he has like that strong of a theme or like music in this movie, because though we get like this piece of source music, it's more like, it's not really for Lando. It's for like his party, his vibe that he is curating. And for the music that we get at his Sabacc table, again, I don't really think it is Lando music at all. I think it's music that scores a card game. I think it's card game music. So, and it makes sense to me why we wouldn't get strong Lando music in this film, because the script of this film doesn't develop Lando as a character. All of the development of Lando comes from Donald Glover's performance and the little things that he adds to Lando. It's not really in the script. And so it
makes me,
I mean, like I say, like I think you only really give a composer will only really probably invest in giving a character or an idea, a theme, if it really feels salient and is given weight in the film. And so it says something that Lando has not been given that.
And I think with the hope that we're still getting a Lando series, where, I mean, because we have no idea when, well, we kind of do, because Kathleen Kennedy said Donald Glover is a busy man. So we know Donald Glover is their target for it. But they also need to get Billy D back, because he deserves to have a send-off with the character, especially with where they leave Lando at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, especially in the novelization. So I think they have an opportunity. Obviously, you're going to have to give him a proper theme in his own show.
I'm so curious to hear what a Lando theme would be.
I'm wondering, so, Donald Glover, when he, for like, I think his first couple of mixtapes, maybe his first album, Ludwig Göransson, composed a lot of his music.
Or produced a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they link up again for that project. But I also wouldn't be opposed to them bringing anything else. Like, I think Natalie Holt did a good job with Kenobi, so I think they're picking good people to compose Star Wars music. But I think there needs to be a distinction between young Lando and older Lando, because they are 50-ish years apart, and there is a lot of life that Lando has gone through to get to where he is in The Rise of Skywalker, or post The Rise of Skywalker, that I feel like the music has to portray.
Well, I think the script and direction are really, really important, because I feel probably less enthusiastic about the direction that some of the TV composers have gone, but I don't think it's the composers. I don't think it's because of the composers, because I think composers do what their gig is, like what their job is. And I think like you have to compose based on what the picture is, based on what the script is, and based on what resources you're given as well. So like, I think all of that stuff comes because you could get the most talented composer in the world, but then give them not enough time, give them a script that is like really hard to base a score off of, give them, all these conditions, like it has to be like a team effort. Like a composer can't just come up with something out of thin air that makes the whole thing work.
Right.
I think all of the elements need to be really pulling their weight. So I think Lando would need, like on screen, we need more gaps filled on screen. Because right now, at least the film version of Lando is more like a myth of this persona that Lando is, and sort of like what we can fill in from books and a lot of, honestly, Legends material. And it's mostly like about exploits and little adventures and less about character development, which I think also would be a fun premise for a show too. It's just kind of a clear direction is, I think, what I would most desire. What would you like out of Lando? Do you think you would prefer more of like a deep like backstory, or would you prefer more of just fun adventures?
So have you seen the show Arrow?
No.
Okay, so it was a DC show based off of the Green Arrow, and so something that they did, the whole premise was, uh, in some of his comic origin is he gets shipwrecked and marooned on an island for five, well, in the show it was 5 years, and that's where he learns how to be an archer and gets trained in martial arts by like other people that are marooned on the island, and then in the show in the present day, he's back and he's adjusting to coming back, but then they relate the flashbacks to him on the island with what's going on in the present, and so like some of those lessons he learned. So I think that, especially given the fact that you have two actors in two different time periods of his life, you could have older Lando relating and regaling these stories and adventures that he's been on and these life lessons that he learns to Janna and these other former stormtroopers that he's trying to work to reunite with their families in the hope of finding his daughter and reuniting with her. So I think then you can bring that back and showing, like, yeah, I see a lot of myself in you all, like the recklessness and the, and just trying to pass on what he's learned to the next generation, which is what each OT character has been able to do to someone.
That's very true. You should be a script consultant for that show.
Yeah. Lucasfilm, hire me.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we move on to, I'm going to give the rundown of all the stuff that was in this set of minutes, like all the, the themes and everything. But before, I don't want to forget this. Can you say more about your like Lando group that you're in?
Yeah, so it's a Facebook group that I found because I was looking for help, because I was going to do the General Calrissian look, the one he has in Return of the Jedi, for like I was going to get it and then I was going to wear it at Celebration, and the person I was commissioning for like needed all this like detail that I'm like, I did not think about, because I don't really think in terms of that.
Do you have a relationship with someone who like with a seam person who sews and stuff?
Well, I was working with one company for that, and that just kind of fell through. They literally just disappeared. But so when I was looking for those details and I was looking on the internet, and I found some things on Reddit, and I found a Facebook group that is a Lando Calrissian community cosplay group. And I joined there, and so you have Landos of all different backgrounds, shapes, sizes, everything, doesn't matter, and we all just like post like some of our content. We'll like, hey, I need help doing the professional sportsman look, which is the yellow outfit he wears in Solo, and they'll be like, oh yeah, this is how I made mine, and like these are the measurements I had for his holster and things like that. And I did meet a couple of them in at Celebration, and there is a photo of 4 of us Landos doing the Spider-Man meme.
Did you make a video?
Yeah, so I have a video of it. So it started off
Can you send me a link?
Yeah, I'll send it to you now. So it started off as one, me and another one, and then someone was like, "There's another Lando right there," and so then we grabbed him, and so it was 3 of us, and then another Lando like rolled up, and she was just like. So then it was just like 4 of us, and we became a spectacle. And this is like Sunday, like at 4:45, everybody's leaving, so everybody's walking out, and they see us, and everybody's like, "Get around!" And I was like, "Oh." They're like, "This is your fault. You started this." I was like, "I didn't expect all this to happen. Run, guys, run!"
That's awesome. Well, you can send it to me later, and I'll put it in the show notes. But I just want to make sure people listening, if anyone listening is into like Lando and wants to get into cosplaying Lando and wants some, help and some community around that, then maybe check out this group. I mean,
yeah.
I know it can be very hard to start with cosplaying, and a character like Lando doesn't have as much out there as like Rey or like, some of the other characters. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Kris.
Oh no,
that is much appreciated. Okay, so The stats from this set of minutes are, so the themes that we hear are The Gang, Secrets, Han and Chewie, and Young Han Solo, the heroic version, composed by John Williams. And in the soundtrack, we are on the track Maul's Call / Parting Ways, 7M43-44-45. And then Lando's Jungle Room, which is the source music. And then the bit at the end where they're at the Sabacc table is called Dice and Roll on the regular version of the soundtrack. And on the deluxe version, that same track is called Sabacc Rematch / To Tatooine. So yeah, if you have those soundtracks or, a streaming service where you can listen to them, then you can check them out. You can check them out there. And Star Wars Lawyer has already done the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire. But I like to give returning guests an opportunity to hear their old answer and add to it if you would like. Mm-hmm. So the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire, question number 1 is, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like? Now, I can give you your old answer first, or if you want, you can just give a new answer, and I can tell you your old answer after. What do you prefer?
Yeah, let's go with my old answer, because I don't think I have a new one.
Okay, your old answer is A Galactic Symphony.
Yeah.
Cool. We're staying with that. And then question number 2 is, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about?
Let's see. So I would love to be able to deep dive into some of my favorite themes from Star Wars, or some of my favorite tracks are the love pieces that we have. Like my favorite prequel track is Across the Stars, hands down. So I would love if I were able to talk to John Williams for, it's just like, okay,
the dream.
How did you do that? Like what was your mindset? What was your, like, how did you, because he talks about how it takes him like 6 months or like to do Star Wars. It's like these pieces specifically, because they're more intimate. And to me, they hit far harder than, like, as much as everyone recognizes Duel of the Fates and Battle of the Heroes or the Imperial March, like this is personal.
That's good for me to know, like, a deep dive into these tracks. Any others besides Across the Stars that you want to specifically call out as wanting a deep dive into?
So
like all of the love tracks, like Han and Leia.
I would say Han and Leia. I would also like The Princess Appears. Not as much the forcing, because like as much as I love the Force and the Binary Sunset, Princess Leia's theme is, I think, especially post Carrie's passing, like it just hits. It hits every time really I hear it. I'm just like, I'm not gonna cry.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm seeing John Williams at the Hollywood Bowl next in a month, and I already know that when they play that, I'm just gonna be crying.
Yeah, they. So were you in the morning panel during the Kenobi, being able to hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I wasn't expecting that. To be able to hear John Williams, like that was on my bucket list.
That was so cool that we got to see him. Like so cool that they got him.
I was freaking out.
Yeah. That was that was an epic guest.
A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one.
Yes, exactly. So question number 3 is, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars? Now, I can give you your old answers, or you can just come up with new ones off the top of your head, what you're into at the moment.
Well, I wonder if I said The Prince of Egypt.
Yeah, I'm curious. No, you didn't.
Okay, I love the Prince of Egypt score and soundtrack.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's Hans Zimmer, so it's not. He's like my number 2 composer, so that's not surprising. Let's see, anything else? How to Train Your Dragon.
John Powell.
Yeah, he did a phenomenal job there, especially the flight. The one is I don't know what it's actually called, but their first flight together, Hiccup and Toothless's first flight together.
Test flight?
Yeah, that is, love it.
Awesome. Yeah, we've had a number of people call that one out this season, and it's probably John Powell's probably most beloved. I mean, that's not based on any statistics, but a lot of people love How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, do you want to know what you said last time?
Yeah, what did I say last time?
Just for kicks, you said Interstellar.
Oh, yep.
Tron Legacy, and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Yep.
Cool. So now we'll add these new ones to the list. Well, where can people find you online? I know you have your Twitter has updated since the last time you were on this show.
Yeah, I decided to, keep everything consistent. So I am Star Wars Lawyer on pretty much every social media except Facebook. And I have a podcast, Too Black, Too Nerdy, where we talk pop culture. And you can find that wherever pods are cast, as Camilla would say.
Yeah, Camilla. Yes, also a guest of this show. We love Camilla.
Yes, we do.
So the podcast, Too Black, Too Nerdy, what do you talk about? All things like pop culture, like Star Wars and other stuff?
Yeah, so we talk Star Wars, Marvel, DC, anime. We've talked about the topics of the day, the things that are happening in the real world that are impacting our lives. So, like during 2020, when we're talking about, the presidential election, and we were talking about the Black Lives Matter protests, and just things that, if we want to talk about it, we're going to talk about it.
That's awesome. So yeah, I recommend following Star Wars Lawyer on all the social media platforms. Also, TikTok. You can see a lot more of his cosplay.
Yes.
Also, I will embarrass you and say that you do such a great Vader. So
he's coming.
Yeah.
Vader is what I'm working on now. Empire Strikes Back Vader. I hope to have him by the fall. Like, I will have him by Celebration 2023, but I'm hoping to have him around Halloween time. He should be completed.
That's so cool. How do you practice the voice?
I just do it. Did I tell the story last time on how I
I don't remember.
So how I found out I had the voice. So it was the senior year of high school. I was at a Model UN conference in Chicago. And so a couple years prior to that, my school had sent students, and they were being rowdy teenagers. So they punished our school in future years by giving us smaller countries that, yeah. So instead of being like in any of the G20, we were Micronesia that year. So we
It's such a specific form of punishment.
Yeah, but I was like, what does that have to do with me? So we went there, and we were getting credit based on participation. So my partner and I, we were going up there, and he was like, go up there and speak in your deepest voice possible, because no one's going to pay attention to us. Because really, unless you're in the really the G8, no one really cares. They're just there for a fun weekend in Chicago, and so people are talking, not really paying attention. And so then I go up there and I say, the delegation of Micronesia, and everybody gets quiet. And then like my partner goes into his spiel, and we do something called unmoderated caucuses, where you get up and you talk informally amongst people. And I would just walk by, and everybody's like, go talk to that black kid and see if his voice is really that deep. And so I kept it up for the entire weekend. And so I wasn't really doing anything to sound like anyone. I just deepened my voice. And then this one girl was like, you kind of sound like Mufasa. And I was like, oh, let me try it. And I was like, everything the light touches is our kingdom symbol. And then it was a wrap.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. That's really funny. Yeah, I guess I guess some people are just born with the capability, and then you have to answer the call and that's amazing.
That's my origin story.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So anyway, yes, follow Star Wars Lawyer on all the places. All the links will be in the show notes. And if you want to follow Star Wars Music Minute, I'm on social media at Star Wars Music Minute in all of the places. But on Twitter, it's at Star Wars Musemin. And with that, we only have a couple more episodes left for this season. May the Force be with you. Thanks so much for listening to Star Wars Music Minute.